Good morning. I'm a late substitute for the rather more glamorous Melanie Dudley. I've just said to Steve, had I known, I'd have put my tie on. So my apologies. I'm John Garrett. Welcome this morning. As you know, we're here this morning to look at the cumulative impacts of the various welfare reforms that are coming towards us. You will all know already that the cumulative impact of this, particularly on families, on very low incomes, living in homes that might be slightly bigger than government has now decided they need, in low-level work, is going to be very profound indeed. And Cllr Eling is going to go through some of the detail of this. Colleagues in Research Sandwell have done some exceptional work analysing what the impact is going to be on individual families and where that's going to affect the borough geographically. And there will undoubtedly be a knock-on to us as a council on demand on many of our services. Before we move into that, I've been asked to give a plug for Bring a Tin to Work Day. In some ways, this is symbolic of the welfare reforms. If you'd have asked me 20 years ago, would food banks be flourishing in this borough, and indeed, would I welcome them? I'd have first of all said no, I wouldn't welcome them, because I've always believed it's been a part of the role of the state to make sure that everybody, in whatever their circumstances, at least has enough to eat and enough money to keep warm. But the truth is that that's not the situation that a good number of people in this borough are living in. So food banks have become vital to us. So for the next week, we're asking you to bring a tin or more than one tin to work so that we can pass those on to those voluntary bodies in this borough that do a fantastic job supporting those people who cannot feed themselves or their children. If you don't want to bring a tin, if you haven't got a tin of pumpkin soup somewhere, please make a donation. That'd be equally grateful. And I'm going to stop there because we've only got half an hour. Councillor.
Thank you very much, John. And I will speak up. And I'm going to run through what the key challenges are, what it means for Sandwell, give you a few statistics, and then set out what we're looking to do about it as Sandwell Council. And I think it has to be said that the impact, the potential pressure, increased pressure on council services as a result of the benefit changes will impact on many of you in your day-to-day jobs. So it's quite important that we have a broad understanding of some of the benefit changes, even if those benefits are not administered by the council. Most benefits are not. But the fact that those changes are taking place will impact on the demand for council services and on your roles. And I'm just going to run through some of the key changes in here. John has mentioned the issue around housing. There have already been changes to housing benefit in local housing allowance. That's housing benefit for tenants of private landlords. And the changes are coming for social tenants, tenants of the council, tenants of housing associations in what's called social size criteria, or what you might have heard of as being bedroom tax. And so those people classed as under-occupying by one bedroom will lose a sum of money or lose a sum of their housing benefit. Those under-occupying by two or more bedrooms will actually lose 25% of the housing benefit. And there are some additional complications to that, because some people may be under-occupying because of disabilities where they have an adapted property. The change in benefit regulations take no account of that whatsoever. And also something that's relevant to children's services in the council is that foster children, those foster carers in the borough, the foster children are not classed as permanent residents of the household. They're classed as visitors for the purposes of the benefit, and therefore they won't be entitled to a bedroom in the calculation of housing benefit for those houses into the future. Now, just a couple of examples of how that potentially hits. The government says that most of the impact, or most of what they're looking to achieve through benefit changes, is making work pay. So this is an underpinning thing within this. So they're changing the rules in relation to people who receive employment support allowance, those people who are disabled, etc. and many people who've received an employment support allowance in the past won't in the future. They will be reassessed. There will be limits on that. Disability living allowance will disappear. People will be reassessed for a personal independence payment. The government estimates that about 30% of people will not pass the test for personal independence payments who currently receive DLA. That will have a knock-on effect to households where people also then get carers allowances and such like, or passported into other benefits. There will be changes in relation to lone parents, income support, etc. And then there are changes in relation to working tax credits that is already happening. People will have to work a minimum of 24 hours a week to qualify for working tax credits rather than the previous 16 hours per week. Universal credit, the so-called simplification of benefits, starts to be rolled out from October of next year, and that rollout lasts until 2017. That assumes that the computer system that hasn't been designed yet will actually work in October 2013. Government's record on computer systems isn't good, so we cross our fingers, I suppose, for whether or not this new computer system will work in 2013. And then finally, the benefit cap, which much has been made of the benefit cap in the media. You know, all this, why should people be lying in bed when the neighbour's going out to work and getting more than the neighbour? And that's been capped at £26,000. Actually, it isn't been. Benefits are not being capped at £26,000 at all. That's just the spin. Basically, there will be a £26,000 cap for working age families where they're either out of work or work less than 24 hours per week. However, that will only apply at 26,000 if the reduction from their current benefit to 26,000 can be achieved in the reduction of housing benefit. If the housing benefit, if after taking away all of their housing benefit they were still on 28,000, then they will get 28,000. Because, lucky us, we will implement the benefit cap from April of next year, not the government, because we will take away people's housing benefit that we currently administer. The other issue is, for those families that are in work, or where there is 24 hours per week work and they qualify for working tax credits, if you take the example £40,000 a year family that has been suggested, people on £40,000 benefits, if someone in that household gets work at 24 hours on minimum wage, they will get about £11,000 income. Because of the taper, that will take their household income, eligible income, up to about £42,000. If you take away the £11,000 they would get on national minimum wage, they will get a benefit income of £31,000. So again, the £26,000 cap doesn't apply in those circumstances. What it effectively means is, where those households are going to get hit by benefit cap, the only way around this is into work. There is no other way of getting around the benefit cap. It's no good sending them to advisors to qualify for more benefits. Work will be the only answer. Go to the next one. We've set out, and on the wall over here, a timeline of reforms, so it doesn't all happen at once. A lot happens in April of next year, but actually some things have already happened, other things are not going to impact on people really right through till 2017, and I'd invite people at the end of the session to actually come and have a look at that and see when potentially things are going to impact on your service area. We'll go on to the next one. But our analysts, our data analysts in the council have done some fantastic work in terms of looking at what the impacts are likely to be to people who live in Sandwell and potentially therefore the impact on the council. And this sets out here that we know from our own benefits database, from council tax benefits and housing benefit, about 45,000 households in benefit claims in Sandwell at any one time. Not necessarily getting full benefit or full housing benefit, but about a caseload of 45,000. Of that caseload, something like 25,000 non-pensioner households will lose a certain amount of money. And in those households, there are 27,000 children. So when we start talking about the impact on children, vulnerable children, child poverty, there are 27,000 children that will be impacted on in some way. And we estimate that the drop in payout of benefits in Sandwell will be £100 million a year. That's £100 million taken out of the local economy that won't be being spent in local shops and such like, and there will be an economic impact of that on people who are not in the benefit system at all, simply because people will not be spending that money. And I would suggest there will be, because some people will be plunged into severe deprivation, there will be a growth in black market economy that we know exists around very low income households anyway. 7,900 households have been affected by the local housing allowance change. That's the private sector tenancies. 4,500 households affected by bedroom tax. And actually, even if those people wanted to move to a smaller house, if they're in a 3-bedroom house and they only get the housing benefit for 2-bedroom, even if they wanted to move, there aren't the supply of 2-bedroom houses for them to move to. So they're going to be stuck, they will be stuck with a rent on a 3-bedroom property and housing benefit for 2-bedroom and no ability to do anything about it at all. And because of changes for calculations on non-dependence, about 1,000 households will be affected by increased in deduction for non-dependents, so they get a reduction in the housing benefit that they currently receive. We estimate 2,600 people will be impacted by the removal of disability living allowance and introduction of personal independence payments. As I say, that will actually then impact on carers and an entitlement to other benefits as well. 6,000 to lose benefit on reassessment for employment support allowance. 1,500 households affected by the changes to working tax credit. In other words, they work 16 hours or over and get working tax credit. They work less than 24 hours. So those people will lose the working tax credit unless they're able to up their hours to 24 or more. So we've got what you might call the map of misery. And what we've done, and the other maps are here, and I'd invite people to come and have a look at those. Our staff have undertaken some research on where people will be impacted by the changes, where they live in the borough, and across a range of changes. And then this gives you an indication then of the multiple impacts, a culmination of all of those maps on each ward in the borough. There's no great surprises in there. Soho and Victoria, which always comes at the top on deprivation, gets hit the hardest. And you know, you'll be able to see it split there into quartiles. So do have a look at those maps, because they're very useful in terms of us identifying where we might take particular actions going forward. So, well, what are we going to be doing to support people? Well, the first thing I think we've got to do is be realistic. We will not be able to take actions that mitigate against all of these changes. It's too big. It's massive. We will be able to do some things that are around the edges. We may be able to help people through some of the worst impacts, and we will need to try and ensure that that we don't see a massive impact in terms of increased demand for a number of our high-cost council services at the same time that the budgets for those council services are being cut year on year as well. So, you know, we're in a pincer movement here. We're likely to have more demand, say, for children's social care, at the same time that the budget that we've got available to provide children's social care is being squeezed year on year on year. The same with adult social care as well. If you think social services take up 2/3 of the budget, council's budget, the budget's getting squeezed every year, and the biggest impacts of these changes are going to fall on social care budgets. So, you know, a crazy situation. But council tax benefit is abolished from the end of March next year, and there will be a new local council tax reduction schemes. That means that the government will contribute 10% less than they do at the moment for council tax benefit, and they will protect pensioners, which means that actually in Sandwell, the amount of money that they provide in relation to everybody else who's receiving council tax benefit is a cut of 19%. We've brought in a scheme now where we will charge full council tax on all empty properties to plug part of that gap. And we will not be charging people who are currently receiving full council tax benefit. We will not be spending money chasing small amounts of council tax, where it actually ends up costing us more to chase what's owed than what we end up collecting, at the same time as hitting those families on the lowest income. So we're able to do that, and we are doing that. And we've also put in a protection mechanism, because we're aware that because of all of the benefit cap issues, that London boroughs in particular, but also in the rest of the South East, are now moving people out and displacing people around the country, including the Midlands and the North, where housing costs are less. And so we're including a residency qualification in our scheme, so that we can protect that budget to help Sandwell people, rather than have an increased demand from people being moved around the country. The social fund is being abolished at the end of March as well, and the government's making money available to local authorities to provide what they call in local welfare provision. They're cutting the budget by 30% in the process of transferring that money over. And again, we will be looking at what provision we can put in place in order to use that resource to help Sandwell people. We have a report, a framework report for that, going to Cabinet this afternoon, and once that's approved, we'll be able to put the detail on the scheme. It's not a lot of money. It's £1.3 million a year. This isn't going to answer all of the problems, but it'll help a bit, and we'll ensure that we get maximum benefit for it. Again, we will apply a residency qualification for that. We'll look to help Sandwell residents, but I'm sorry, we ain't got enough money to help everybody else that might turn up at our door as well. We do have the provision to make what are called discretionary housing payments, and there will be some extra resource available for that for next year as well, which is supposed to help in the change with social size criteria and benefit cap. We haven't worked out how we're going to prioritise discretionary housing payments yet. That's something that we've got to do over the next couple of months. But importantly, we will be taking a coordinated approach across all of the interventions that we make, so that what we don't want is piecemeal approaches where one thing sort of counter impacts on another. And I'm quite happy to say that in Sandwell we have got that coordinated approach, and what I'm seeing in a number of other local authority areas where I've had a look at what they're doing, they've not quite got that coordinated approach, and I think we're up the front of the game on that. We are going to prioritise advice services. We actually put a fair bit of money into voluntary organisations in Sandwell each year to provide advice, debt counselling and such like. We're going to refocus that advice support, or that resource, next year, recommissioning those advice services, so that we focus on the welfare changes and also on debt advice, because the other fallout from these changes will be more families in debt, requiring help in terms of how that debt gets managed. And focusing on the worst first, I suppose, given that we won't be able to help everyone, then it is about identifying where are the biggest impacts, which are the biggest impacts in terms of people with disabilities or households with children, where will we want to focus and identifying where those worst affected are. And we're coming up to the end now. And then importantly, considering in that coordinated approach, those things that we already do. So preventing homelessness is important. Our housing services actually have a good record in Sandwell on preventing homelessness. The changes to housing benefits will provide new challenges there. The possibility of people getting into arrears and facing eviction goes up considerably. And, you know, it's worth mentioning, people whose rents are paid directly at the moment through housing benefit will be paid cash in future. They will actually be paid the benefit, and then they have to pay the rent. If they decide going shopping is more important than paying the rent, then you can see that arrears are going to grow, evictions are going to grow, demand on homelessness services will grow. So again, helping people to manage their money through advice services, supporting people into jobs. If we're going to help people around the worst impacts of the benefit cap, as I said earlier on, there is only one way around the benefit cap, and that's work. At least 24 hours minimum wage work. So where we help people into work, where we do job linking, then our highest priority, I suppose, should be those households where the only way out of the severe deprivation they're going to find themselves in is work. And communicating key messages. So people need to understand and appreciate the scale of what's coming, whether that's in the council or out there. So we've had repeated messages in the Sandwell Herald. We've had posters out on the streets asking people, do you think you're affected? Have a look here. See what you think that the impact might be. And it's crucial that people know up front what's coming, rather than it hit them and they don't know where it's come from and they don't know what to do next. And John, you're doing the conclusion.
Thank you. I'd like to think of something to say to cheer you up, but I'm struggling miserably. I went to see Great Expectations in the week, and it does feel as though we're moving into increasingly Dickensian times. The obvious conclusion is that whilst this is complicated, whilst it will affect different families in different ways, and it will affect different parts of the borough in different ways, it's going to have a pervasive effect. The number of people in this borough who are dependent on welfare payments is such that this is going to reach far and wide in this community. The role you can take is, first of all, to make yourself aware as you can of the detail of this. I've not heard the term map of misery before. In social care we have the graph of doom, but if you come and have a look at the map of misery, have a look at the timeline, familiarise yourselves with some of these things so that when you or your colleagues are talking to families, you can steer them in the right direction if you think they will be affected. People will make their own choices about how they manage this loss of income, but we must try and help them at least understand what's coming so they can prepare themselves. I've got a note to my left. Okay, have a look at Sandwell Trends. That also gives you some more ideas. And if you have got ideas about how we might take the edge off of this through, you know, getting some people into more paid work to offset the cap, or any other ideas about how we might spread the message, let people know, then please let us know, either through direct email to myself or Alex Hawley. Okay, and thank you, Steve, for a very erudite and succinct, if very, very depressing start to the day. I hope you have a better day, and Merry Christmas to you all.